Where did you have Dalton Knecht on your board pre-draft? And were you surprised by his slide, or given the context of the way things worked, were you kind of understanding of why he fell to number 17?
Well, I don't understand why he fell to number 17. I can understand why he may have maybe slid to, I don't know, the back half of the lottery, potentially. I had him at number 9 on my board. That's where he finished. We mocked him on our last mock, I believe, 5th to the Pistons. Or maybe it was the mock before. So we've been high on him, and we thought he was going to go, much higher than he did ultimately. When he started falling, we just kept going like, all right, well, he's not getting past Miami. Like he's like the quintessential Miami, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, like Tyler Hero, like these guys all just who can kind of shoot off movement and play with the ball in their hands a little bit. Like he's a seamless fit within that system, and you're going to have him on a rookie deal. There's no way he's sliding past Miami, right? And then all of a sudden he does. I think a lot of times teams overthink these things, and at the end of the day, he's 23, and like teams are going to want to swing on upside. And sometimes I think you have to weigh at what you're swinging for. Like, yeah, maybe you hit a home run on one of these guys that you'd rather take earlier than a guy like Dalton, but you could be swinging at a pitch in the dirt. And I think, there were probably a fair amount of teams that were swinging in the dirt just because they thought that was more worthwhile than it was to take a 23-year-old, where it's like, well, if he's not good, like at some point this year, it's probably not going to happen for him. Like, I think that's the way that teams kind of approach looking at older prospects, where it's like, well, he better be good right away because he doesn't have as much runway. Right. So, in this draft in particular, though, I was surprised that he fell to where he did. And I think there are going to be a bunch of teams that ultimately regret it, because there are going to be a number of prospects that were taken before him that, don't necessarily work out and don't fit on the places that they went. And even if, there are players that you really like, like Nikola Topic is somebody I was super high on, and obviously he had the knee stuff, and that's part of the reason in which that he fell. But it's going to be really hard for him to like reach his, I think, full potential in Oklahoma City, just because, they have so many guys who are already accustomed to playing with the ball in their hands. So a lot of this does have to come down to fit, and that's, why some guys are more successful than others. But at the end of the day, yeah, I was surprised that he fell. I don't think he should have fell nearly as far as he did. Definitely not out of the lottery, but these things happen. Nothing shocks me in the draft anymore, to be completely honest. So as surprising as it was, I wasn't shocked.
For sure. Now, with regards to fit, and I'm glad you brought up fit, when it became clear that, Miami didn't take him, Philly didn't take him, the Lakers are up next. When it became clear that the Lakers were going to pick him or had the possibility of picking him, what were your thoughts on his potential fit with the Lakers and potentially being that sort of safety valve on the perimeter for a guy like LeBron James, but also just, considering the Lakers' new coach, JJ Redick, who loves to run motion offense or run plays off the ball for shooters and whatnot. Yeah, what were your thoughts on Dalton Knecht's fit with the Lakers?
I think it's a home run. If I was Dalton, I'd kind of be stoked that this is where I ended up. I mean, for one, his age doesn't matter nearly as much on this roster, because this is a team that is looking to compete right away. And so he's not going to have this expectation now where he needs to come in as some, if he did go 5th, all of a sudden it's like, well, what does the ceiling look like on a player we just invested, the number 5 overall pick in? You're getting a guy at 17. You just want him to go in early and be good at what he's shown to be good at, right? And that is doing a lot of the stuff that I'm sure JJ did throughout his career, which is running off movement, hitting spot up shots, feeling, the ability to play off of the stars, and, not even just the stars, like a guy like Austin Reeves, who's going to make high level decisions and be able to capitalize off that as, some kind of release valve. I think that's going to be really valuable for him. and he's not going to have to be like, oh, can he play in the pick and roll? Like, oh, he wasn't knocking down pick and roll shots in summer league at a high rate. Like, oh no, right? Like you don't have to panic because like, oh, well, what did he do well? He knocked down catch and shoot looks. Well, he's going to continue to do that. He's got great size. He's got a great frame. He's strong enough. He's long. Like, he's got bounce. He's going to be able to play in transition and just like knock down shots that are undoubtedly going to be maybe less pressured than the ones he was taking in Tennessee when he had, the entire defense focused on basically stopping him and still doing whatever he wanted in the SEC, scoring 25 points per game in conference play. So for him, absolute home run. And I think for the Lakers too, because you're getting a guy who I think, you're never going to say, hey, we don't, we have too much shooting, right? Like, this is a guy who's potentially going to shoot in the high 30s, or 40% at some point in his career, and is all of those things. NBA athlete, strong, all that stuff fits the timeline, right? So I think it's a perfect marriage, and it doesn't hurt to be in Southern California weather. So like, win-win for Dalton.
Absolutely. And in fact, I think his age was actually where it was a detriment to other teams. For the Lakers, it was a benefit because he's more seasoned, obviously. Now, with regards to Summer League, how do you feel like he fared this Summer League? He got up to a slow start in the California Classic with like 12 points here, 12 points there. And then I think his last game, he hit like 20 points, 9 rebounds, etc. But then once Vegas Summer League hit, he just needed that little runway. And all of a sudden, okay, here's Dalton Knecht averaging 21 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. And I feel like his entire summer league was a good encapsulation of not only Dalton Knecht's ceiling as an on-ball creator at some points, but also his floor, because he did a lot of really good like off-ball work, coming off screens, coming off, motion with Colin Castleton and cutting to the right open spots. And I think for me, the thing that surprised me was just how relentless he is. Like, he's unfazed by his missed shots and how ugly his game is, regardless of how he starts a game off. Like, he seems like a player that really trusts his game and knows how to get to his spots and trusts his shot and skill. He'll get bumped here and there. And obviously we saw him adjust to the physicality of the NBA, and these aren't even NBA players yet, but he never seemed deterred from that. He's like, at some point, I'm going to get to my spots no matter what. I'm going to keep trusting my own skill and shot. And I really loved his like strength combined with his craftiness and getting to the basket. And his finishing ability was also pretty impressive. He had a couple of really nice like left-handed finishes in like against contact as well. So for you, what did you see out of his summer league that either affirmed what you already believed in Knecht, or maybe even surprised you a little as well?
Yeah, I think the players that get to play in like the Salt Lake City Summer League and the California Classic, like it's almost like a preseason, because for the most part, these guys are not playing live games since their season ended all the way back in February or March, that area, right? So I think that, when you start out slow or whatever, it's like, whatever, you're playing with guys that you've never really, maybe you've had a few practices, right? Like, you're all trying to get to know each other. Then you're making the adjustments to like, all right, well, the line's a little deeper. I haven't played in a while. Is this guy going to hit me in my spot at the time? So by the time you get to Vegas, like it's almost a benefit to have gotten a couple of games under your belt, and then you can kind of roll into it. And now the lights are the brightest. Now, people are really paying attention. What I saw out of Dalton is what I saw out of him at Tennessee, and even previous to that, when he was, an unheralded player, mid-major guy. Like, he's a guy who can get to a spot pretty easily, and that's the thing that stood out the most. Like, whether he was making or missing shots, like, can you get to the spot? Like, I know he can shoot. Like, there's nothing that a 5-game sample from Dalton Knecht is going to show me. Whether he went, 25 for 25 or whether he struggled, like, I know he can shoot. I've watched it for a couple of years now. The fact that he was kind of easily getting to his spots on the floor, that's the kind of thing I look for in Summer League. And he was getting to his spots regularly, right? And like, some shots went in, sometimes they didn't. It felt like when he missed, a lot of his misses were short. That's probably due to maybe playing continuously in this setting, or, having not played in a while, and now you're trying to, get your conditioning going. So for me, I thought he looked like Dalton Knecht. That's the guy that we all predicted was going to be a top 10 pick. And again, like these are great reps for him to have, but at the end of the day, he's probably going to play a pretty different role ultimately on the big team, and I think he's going to thrive there too.
Yeah, and even with that being said, I saw enough flashes of his off-ball instincts and knowing how to
Hmm.
cut into open space, how to flare out into those open pockets along the three-point line whenever a driver to kick out to. Like, to me, I was like, oh, this is the definition of a plug-and-play offensive player because he can move without the ball, but at the same time, if the shot clock's running down, you give him the ball, he can do a lot of very intriguing things with it as well, absorb contact, get to the foul line, hit tough shots if needed. So yeah, I really like what I saw from Dalton Knecht as well. Now, the one weakness, and this is a weakness of his, prior to the draft, that a lot of people sort of gathered from his summer league was his defensive play. And yeah, I guess how do you see him progressing defensively? Um, will he ever have the lateral speed to keep up with shiftier defenders? I think we all can recognize that he's a very strong. He's pretty strong. He's pretty well built and strong. Can he ever leverage that on the defensive end to be, I don't know, a competent defender like a Max Struess or something like that?
If the goal is to be like, can he be competent? I don't have that
Mm.
many doubts in my mind. Because one of the other things with having kind of like a reduced role on offense is that now you can also kind of focus your efforts on both sides of the ball.
True.
Whereas, like, if you're trying to lift an offense up and score 20 to 30 points a night with the defense focused on you, it takes a lot out of you, and not an excuse not to defend, obviously, but like you obviously are going to kind of pick and choose your spots where you can kind of maybe rest a little bit, right? At the next level, he's going to have much more opportunity to prove that he is a two-way player. Now, early on, there shouldn't be a Lakers fan that expects him to be good. The best defensive rookies are still bad most of the time, unless you are a generational prospect like Victor Wembanyama, especially on the perimeter, because not only are you trying to figure out like, hey, like I just got switched on to Paul George, right? Like, and I have to try to stop him. It's also like the ball is moving so quickly, like I have to process all of this and be in the right spot and rotations and stuff. There is going to be a learning curve with Dalton Knecht on the defensive side of the ball, especially because that was an area that I think the reason he chose Tennessee initially was because he wanted to get better defensively, and they then realized he was so good offensively. They were like, "You're actually just going to be our entire offense. So we'll figure out the defense around you." So I don't think he got to work on that nearly as much as he wanted to when he made that decision. I think he will get there, certainly, in his career. I wouldn't expect it early, but for the most part, there's very few rookies I would really expect that for. I think his offensive value is going to be at least enough to weigh that. Luckily, Anthony Davis is, an unbelievable defender who can erase a lot of things, as we're seeing now in a lot of these games, even in the summer with Team USA. So, that's a benefit for Dalton, that he'll have a backline guy behind him that he's never really, had before.
For sure, and we have some precedents with this as well, with regards to and a draft prospect coming out of the league who wasn't necessarily regarded as a defender in Austin Reeves. He mentioned that was the knock on him coming out of college, and the one thing that he really wanted to focus on was just doing all the dirty work, gritty little things at the next level, which he ended up doing. Last question on Dalton Knecht. Given how the draft board played out, is there one prospect who was drafted after Knecht that you would have preferred for the Lakers to take? Maybe preferred is a harsh or a strong word, but yeah, is there anyone besides Knecht that it's kind of two questions. I don't think there's anyone, well, maybe you can answer this. Is there anyone who came after Knecht who you would have drafted over Knecht regardless for the Lakers? Or is there also someone, now that everything's played out the way it has, that you would, and maybe you can add into this the retrospective of what just happened at Summer League. Yeah, are there any players that you would have taken over Knecht if you were the Lakers?
The only other guy that would have been in the conversation for me was Tristan da Silva. And
Okay.
I still would have taken Dalton Knecht, because I think that Knecht, one, their age is, they're similar age. So it's not like you'd be like, oh, well, this guy's younger, he's got more runway. I think that Knecht has more runway to grow, just because he does have a unique kind of developmental arc, given, how he came up. He finally played mid-major or high major basketball, dominated it. So, but also I just think like he has like the potent scorer gene, where I think like Tristan da Silva is like born to kind of glue things together, where it's like Dalton Knecht could win you a playoff game because he explodes for 45 points out of nowhere, right? Like that's the kind of, he goes 9 for 9 from 3. And then like is getting downhill and putting guys on posters. And like, I just think like his ultimate ceiling is still higher than what Tristan da Silva is, whether or not their careers play out in whatever way. But Tristan da Silva is the only other guy where it's like plug and play kind of guy, has like the positional versatility that you need in a playoff setting, is a smart high feel guy. Like if the ball swings his way, he doesn't have anything, he's going to move it off it quickly. Like he's really the only other guy that I think could have benefited this particular Lakers team. If it was another team, yeah, maybe I can make an argument for a player here, a player there over, a Tristan da Silva. But like specifically for the Lakers, like you got to find cheap talent that could play where you can. So like, and again, like at this point of the draft, how many high ceiling swings do you really have where you're like, this is a realistic thing where this could end up ultimately hitting and we get like an all-star out of it? Like that's very, very rare. So for a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, let's try to make, this happen now. So those are really the only two guys that would have been on my radar.
Yeah, I think Dalton Knecht is more of like you kind of kill two birds with one stone in terms of high floor, but also maybe a high ceiling. And Tristan da Silva is high floor, maybe a lower ceiling. For me, that the guy that I probably would have picked, and Summer League only affirms this for me because I had really high thoughts on him prior to the draft, but I really like Jalen Tyson coming out of the draft, and Knecht wasn't on my radar for the Lakers at number 17 for obvious reasons.
Sure.
But then, so for me, I really gravitated towards Jalen Tyson, and everything he's done in the Summer League has done nothing to deter me from that opinion, just because he's just tough as nails. He's so smart. Seems like he's got really good vision, low center of gravity type guy, but man, does he have the ball on a string at all times. And it always looks like he's under control. And even if he's caught up in a mess, it seems like he always finds a way to get himself out of that mess. So I was just really intrigued by his like toughness, smarts, and he carries himself like a veteran already. So Jalen Tyson would be that type of guy for me if I had to choose, like, who would I have picked besides Dalton Knecht at number 17 for the Lakers? For me, it would have been Jalen Tyson, but Tristan da Silva makes a lot of sense too.
I like Tyson a lot. Yeah.
You do? Okay, great.
Yeah, it's a good one.
With that said, let's take